Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, a podcast that transcends the typical personal development journey. You're not new to this. You've read the books, attended the seminars, and perhaps even tried various coaching programs, yet something still feels amiss. Elon and Guy have over 2 decades of relentless searching and $1 million invested in their personal growth quest. Here's the revelation. You're not missing anything. You're not even behind. You might have just been searching in the wrong places. In each episode, we'll uncover the most effective, straightforward practices that have profoundly impacted our lives and the tens of thousands of our clients from all over the world. This is about real, sustainable results for those dedicated to their personal and spiritual growth. So get ready to explore and enjoy the show.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome, one and all. Nice to be with you.
Happy Thanksgiving week, indeed. I was actually thinking we maybe want to talk about a little bit about that because I'm assuming most of you guys who are celebrating are going to be with fam.
Mm-hmm.
Which for most people tends to be a bit of a unpleasant situation, I guess.
I've always felt like that's more of an American thing.
No, I'm saying not. But that's what I'm saying. Like we have a ton of people here. I'm curious if that's people's case. Like the holidays tend to be tough. Being with certain family members. I'm curious if that's people's experiences. Yeah,
I mean, I said just speak into it.
Definitely not for us.
Again, I've always felt like that was a like an American thing that was perpetrated through like media to show
interesting
example of like I don't think that's like a worldwide contention. Like I feel like most cultures are like maybe there is stuff with the family, but they don't have this like lens of like sitting with your family is like a dismay. Like people fly across the country like begrudgingly in America. They're like, oh, I can't believe I have to go see my parents. Like maybe not everyone has smooth like relationships with parents, but in the cultures we grew up in, I don't ever remember anybody saying stuff like that.
No, I definitely remember, whether it's from Christmas or Thanksgiving, there's always like, listen, most people don't have a good relationship with their parents, with their aunts or uncles or, a cousin or whatever. Yeah. Alicia says if we avoid politics.
Yeah.
And Roy says that, yeah, definitely in the UK for Christmas. They don't, obviously, the US is pretty much, I think, the only one that celebrates Thanksgiving. Canada, I know, has their own day, but
they have their own Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the end of the day, like the relationships that we have and the people that we have in our lives, especially ones that have like we've grown up with, whether it's siblings, parents, grandparents, aunts, cousins, whatever. The worst part, especially for people that do personal development, I find is you go back and like they don't see you as the new version that you are, and they start to relate to you as the old version that you are, and that upsets you.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like you revert back to that version.
Sure.
And then you're upset not only at them but at yourself that like they suckered you into being in that old version of you. So
yeah,
I know that happens quite a bit.
I've to some degree, this is not totally true because I couldn't go anyway, but I like avoided my 2 high school reunions so far.
Oh yeah.
For that same reason. I'm like, I don't know that I could go back into that space and not revert back into all my crunchy little high school parts. And I kind of just like want to leave those there. And if there's people I really want to see, like I can always go see them. But yeah, I think that is a serious experience, especially when you've done a lot of work and you find yourself in an old environment. And then like you just say things you haven't said in like 2 years. You're like, oh man.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like it like pokes that part out of you somehow. And so you end up reverting
configurations,
Yeah, exactly the word.
You contort yourself into the configuration you're in.
That's right. And so, we're big on like when you do this work, it's kind of like a two-pronged approach. I mean, for this particular case, I'm just going to say it. So there's obviously doing your own work, right? Like doing your own inner healing. And the second prong of that is actually then somehow translating that into your environment such that they start to also see you as this new way that you are. And I think that second piece is one that people don't really know how to do or do well. And then they get kind of sucker punched when they're in these environments. I also think that the work that we do today, different than the work that we used to do, allows for us to focus more on our inner world and experience. And as the things are arising, we already have this notion that it's not the other person that's doing this to me. It's just like this environment or whatever, but it is showing me something inside of me that I get to kind of sit with and work with. Whereas before, I think we would have been like, have the conversation with them, share this with them, So I think even today we approach it slightly differently than we did before.
Not even slightly. I would say very differently. I mean,
yeah,
the quote old me, it was important to be righteous. It was important to have a opinion that had agreement around it. Like now I'm like, I think part of it is when you observe the self a lot, your tendency, and I think Jocelyn was pointing at this too, was that your tendency is to just observe more, observe other people and not be so reactive to what it is that they're doing or not doing. And that doesn't mean you can't get pulled into things here and there. It's fine if it does. And I think the opportunity of that, well, let's say this, the opportunity of that is always that it highlights what still needs attention, in your own system. And it makes sense. Like, you're going to be around your family. It's like most of the trauma that most of us are working through happened with and around these people. And they're going to be reminders of stuff that most of us have spent a lifetime trying to avoid. Mm-hmm. And, there it is, like the little voice in your head typically is the judgments that mom and dad had of you, or told you that you'd be this way, don't be that way. Or this is how we get trained, so to speak. And so, of course, there's the physical representation and manifestation of the little voice in your head right in front of you saying the things that you don't even like when you say to yourself. Nevertheless, when a person is saying it to you, it makes sense. But again, that's the beauty, is that it highlights for you, and probably not the best time to do it in that environment when you're dysregulated. But you go home, you get into your own space, and you start sitting with things, and it can be very healing.
So this is what I was going to offer today, just for those, because I know many of us are going to be in this environment. What Guy's pointing to is we can actually do that in advance. And it doesn't mean that it's going to like make all the things hunky-dory when you get there, but it'll give you a lot more ground and place to kind of rest when the stuff is going to inevitably happen. So for some of us, whether it's, mom that triggers us, or dad that triggers us, or grandfather, or aunt, uncle, cousin, whatever it is, right? Like think of that one person that you're kind of hesitant to be in the room with. It might not be that you have even anything like bad happen, but just the person that tends to be a little bit more friction, or you try to avoid, or like, okay, how am I going to, your brain is already trying to figure out how to navigate and what we can talk about and not talk about. And right, like you already know, we do this as a practice. But what I would say is, like, you can take the meditation practices that we teach here and the things that we do, and you can actually find that place of stability and safety and ground, right? Like as you drop into the meditation, and then you actually want to bring that person into your mind's eye, bring the conversation, bring the thing that they do, bring the thing that they say, bring whatever it is into your mind's eye. And in the same way that we teach you guys to watch what is happening, in the body, you're going to literally bring this person in that circumstance into your mind's eye, and you're going to just start to track what in your system is actually being fired, what is being triggered, right? What is being awakened. And what you can start to do is, like, over the next day or two, you can actually do kind of like reps, if you will, like little practice reps, and get really acquainted with the part inside of you that person ends up triggering. And because you're in a home safe environment, you can actually start to do practices to regain stability and, be with the part and allow this kind of thing to move through. And that way, my guess is you're going to walk into that environment, and even if the trigger happens, because you will have done these reps beforehand, it's the same thing like being on your couch, but you're just doing it there on the fly. And you're like, oh, this is the part, like maybe the part that gets triggered that doesn't feel heard, or that feels less than, or feels unseen, or whatever it might be, right? Like whatever is the thing that they activate inside of you, if you can build a relationship with that part now, when you're in your safe home and environment, then when that part gets triggered in the heat of the moment, you already have that connection. You know where the part lives, you know what it wants from you, what it needs. And then maybe it's just a matter of like on the fly, you could just be like, all right, I got you. Like say it's a part that doesn't feel heard, right? Then what you want to do is you want to actually give that part the knowing that you can hear it, that you're there, that you're listening. Because what we assume is that we need this from this other person in order to feel good, but we don't. The part needs it from us more than it needs it from any of them. Yep. And so if you can learn to give yourself that peace in the moment, then the peace just calms down. And then that person, whoever it is, he or she doesn't have the thing to activate that inside of you, because you've already softened it. You've already given it what it needs. So I think over the next day or two, it would be amazing for you guys, especially people that have done this work. I know Deepa's here for the first time, so maybe this is a little over your head, but this is kind of specifically for those who I know have done this work and know about the meditations, and you've been to the live events and you've done some programs, etc. This would be a really, really good place to practice. Now, on the flip side of it, say you go there and you do get triggered. Okay. Here's my recommendation. Pull yourself away from excuse yourself calmly from whatever the circumstance is, and go sit in a quiet place and do the same practice, but do it in a calmer environment, whether it's in the bathroom, a bedroom, wherever. Just go find a space that you can kind of sit there on your own and do that practice. And then again, go back out, because think about this. The stress is the teacher. The stress is the growth opportunity. So when the stress happens, right, think it's pushing on your nervous system. It's pushing on the parts. So you can use it as an opportunity to actually create more strength, more stability, more resiliency, or you can get knocked out by it. And even if you do get knocked out by it for that minute, but you have that thing that comes up behind that I'm planting right now, that little seed that goes, okay, I can now use this, and I can go into a private room and actually sit with myself for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever it might be. Or maybe if you have people in this community and you want to do a quick little, 5-minute mini or whatever it is, use the opportunity. Don't just let it be and go back into the default mode. And even if you didn't catch yourself for the first hour or 2 or 3 or whatever it is, but then you catch yourself, acknowledge that you caught it, and then go do the practice. Really use the opportunity. Don't just allow it to blow by.
Yeah, that's true. What happens. It can't happen any other way than how it's happening. How you respond to it versus how you react to it can be night and day in terms of the quality of your life. And that goes for anything that arises in our lives. It's I think we've all, if you're here, chances are you've taken developmental courses before. Anytime you do anything developmentally, you're putting yourself into a bit of an uncomfortable situation. We take people to do plant medicine down in the Colombian jungle, to do ayahuasca. It's not a comfortable situation. It's beautiful. It's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Any other work that Eli and I have ever done, even from the most fundamental things we did early on, every time it was so uncomfortable, doing things that are vulnerable, whether emotionally or to share things with people that you've hidden away or avoided your whole life. It really is an act of courage every single time. And, the beautiful part is when you know yourself as somebody who's willing to be in those kind of situations, and for whatever reason, I could speak for me, but probably for Elon as well, being somebody who's been willing to do those kind of experiences, and knowing myself as somebody who's always a willing participant for those kind of experiences has let me live my life with a certain type of confidence, not like all pervasive confidence, but like a certain type of confidence that like, that's just who I am. I am that kind of person. And I get to walk around in the world with that knowledge and wisdom of myself, knowing and seeing that most people don't put themselves in those kind of situations. And it does give me a little lift in my step. It does give me a little bit more belief, whether I'm building a business or how I'm with my children or elsewhere, because I'm less constrained or perhaps concerned about not showing up great all the time.
Yeah.
I used to be really concerned, even in front of you guys, like, when you place yourself or you're put into a teacher role, potentially a place of authority in people's lives, you feel the constriction of like losing or not being able to show a part of your humanity, like you have it all together all the time, or that you have things figured out, or that you have some kind of like perfect strategy or formula. And you see that everywhere online, right? Like everyone's kind of, it's the Instagram filter effect, so to speak. And it's like, that's just not life. It's not the reality of things. I navigated a really difficult conversation with my wife this morning that could have been handled better. And it wasn't about even the relationship or anything between us. It's a big financial decision we're trying to make. And the kids were being kids and disruptive. And we were trying to navigate a conversation that you shouldn't navigate in that kind of environment to begin with. But we have young kids, and like the reality is where I am with my wife right now is we don't have a lot of quality time with each other. It's like, she's taking care of the kids, I'm working, then we're kind of constantly flip-flopping, trying to balance time. And by the time 8:30 rolls around and we actually have time to sit with each other, we're both so tired. The only thing we can muster is pretty much putting foreheads on each other and like drooling and just and finding out if the other person's okay, and like that's the reality. And so it starts feeling like two ships in the night unless we really take time to do stuff with each other. But that's just kind of, it's where we are in life right now. I have almost a 2-year-old at home. He's amazing and just a complete light. And he's also a total fucking raccoon who puts his hands on everything and gets into every 15 seconds is like something death defying that he shouldn't be doing, So it's like, that's just how it goes. So like that's the reality. Right. And then you try to navigate like an important conversation and it turns sour and it doesn't feel good. And I'm still feeling it in my system this morning. I'm sure she is too. And we haven't had a chance to talk about it or clear it up. And I say like, that's always the good news, bad news. It's like,
if you treat it that way.
Yeah. But I'm saying like in the moment it feels terrible. I'm
Yes.
like, could have handled that better. And it was like the initial reaction to what she said. And then it kind of like, it's like, we don't forgive ourselves time to just sit with what's being said. Mostly because it feels like we don't have time, right? And hopefully you're seeing this as a reflection of different parts of your life also. And it's like, if I would have had like a few minutes to like sit there and think about it and be with it and not immediately have to have a reaction to it, it probably would have been totally navigated different. Much, much better. But as we talked, I started finding all the things that were really important to me that I didn't know when she initially said it. And, again, could have been handled better. So she was pretty pissed off this morning, rightfully so. And I was feeling really scared and worried about the nature of the conversation. And I didn't want to make a big family choice from an emotional place without having like data. Cause like what initially came up was fear.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to say like, could have been handled better. And good news is that like, hey, we both know, okay, there's a part within us that doesn't feel safe. We get to sit with that. We get to get some support around that. And then the relationship gets better. It always does. Like, in the same token, I have a friend that's here visiting that I haven't seen in like 4 years, who's living with us for the next few days. Michael Bledsoe's here.
Oh, how nice.
For a few days. Hi. And then, simultaneously, I'm telling you, like my wife, we're having a conversation with him and her words, not mine. Although I agree with her words, is like, hey, our relationship is in the best place it's ever been. And the only reason it's in that place is because when things like this happen, we do the work that we do with you guys every single day. So it's like we're not worried anymore about the detriments of what show up in daily life. Yeah. It's more of how do we respond to it in a way that next time there's more healing around that. And I'm still not worried to now, which I used to be all the time. I'm like, this can never happen again. Like, we can never be in this energy again. We can never have this conversation again. And it's like, and not because I think anything is wrong with that conversation. It's more like I don't want to be in that energy with my wife. When I know where we normally sit and what's possible for us, of course, you want to maintain that as much as possible. Having said that, it's like unlikely, as unlikely as never being reactive about anything in this world ever again. And if like that's the view that you have, like I'm attached to this perfect scenario in my life, this perfect way that I'm going to be, it's downright never going to happen. You're going to just sit in endless disappointment. And I've seen that with clients too, who have these completely unrealistic expectations of what transformation and healing is when they've never done transformation or healing work.
Yeah.
So it's like the only time people suffer to that extent is when they are so attached to this end result. And I've been there. I'm sure you've been there many, many times in your life before. And like, it just doesn't help. So it's like, you know, the programs that we teach, especially around L2 and L3, and especially around L3, we teach, there's no curriculum at L3. And this is going to be weird and paradoxical to say, but there's no curriculum by design. So there's the design for no design, so to speak. And the reason there's a design for no design is because life, as much as we all like to think that we're designing it, it's very cliche to say, I'm designing my reality. I'm designing my own life. You know, it's like, you're not. Because tomorrow you could be dead, you know? Or like,
Did you design that?
Did you design that? Like, I always laugh at this. Like, I have walked by in my life maybe 2 or 3 times where I see like a psychic has shut down her business. I'm like, bet she didn't see that shit coming. Like, I have a picture of it because I've a few of them now because I've seen it. I was in Kingston last year and there's one here in California. So I'm like, I bet she didn't see that coming, you know? So it's like, you want to think you're designing your life, and it's fine if you do. Like, to some extent, I live in that fantasy too. Of course, I'm designing my life, but I'm not, because I don't know what's coming tomorrow. And so the reason for the design of no design in L3 is because the phenomenon of life, the phenomenology of life, is that life emerges, just comes into being. Things just happen, right? And our incapacity to be with the emergent space, what's just arising, is the reason we're suffering.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can learn to do is to be with what's arising. And that always starts with what's arising within you. But the conclusion most people have come to is that I'm warding off circumstances around me, externally from me, not realizing that the only thing that's really causing suffering in any circumstance or is what's happening inside of yourself. And so mastery needs to start from within in order to create or generate a more stable external reality. We need to generate and cultivate a more stable internal reality.
Yeah, I really love the piece about the relationship and being like the best that it's been, even though like it doesn't look like the Hollywood of, you know, like we're having sex every second of every day and like, you know, all this.
Actually, no, we have children.
Just putting foreheads and drooling on each other.
Yeah, exactly. Like intimacy has changed to drool, basically.
Yeah, but like, you know, there's these visions of what relationships are supposed to be like, and et cetera. And you know, Fanny and I just celebrated a 16-year anniversary. We've been together for 17 and a half years, married for 16, and like, I can honestly say that I love my wife more today than I did when we first got together. Because like the things that we have gone through and the way we know each other today, the circumstances that we've had to navigate, both from a relationship standpoint, financial standpoint, familial standpoint, like all these things that have just kind of constantly unfolded. And the thing that I say all the time is this, like, if you don't have a willingness to communicate, you got no shot at long-lasting relationship. I mean literally any relationship, like whether it's with your kids or your spouse or the business partner, etc. Like communication is everything. And then the other piece that I love that you said, bro, is the knowing that it's okay if this stuff shows up. Are you feeling inspired by these podcasts? Is this approach striking a chord with you? Imagine taking this journey even further with personal coaching from Guy and I, right from your own home on Zoom. Join us at our next live event. They happen quarterly. It's an accessible, cost-effective way to dive deep into these transformative practices, not just theoretically, but experientially. Attendees often share that they've experienced unprecedented levels of peace, support, forgiveness, and awareness. Remember, healing isn't just a mental exercise. It must be felt and released through the body. So here's a special gift just for you, our valued listener. Visit intuitivemind.live and use the coupon code OLDSOUL to receive 25% off your ticket. The Intuitive Mind event is unlike any other. So impactful that many participants return multiple times, some as many as 10, 12, even 15 times. Plus, once you register, we'll immediately send you a recording of a previous event so that you can start practicing right away. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to intuitivemind.live, secure your spot for our next live event using the coupon code OLDSOUL, and start your transformative journey today. Now, back to the show. Because a lot of times it's like, if it shows up, everyone's like, oh, there must be something wrong with our relationship, or like we're broken, or we're not right for each other, blah, blah, blah. But like, I don't know any relationship that has lasted over decades that does not have adversity. Like even Guy and I, like we love each other and we have been very close, minus like a few years in there, like very, very close, like always in each other's lives, always doing similar things, etc. Like, did we fight? You bet your fucking ass we did. Like when we were kids, we fought one way. Then we got a little bit older, then we fought other ways. Then we got into personal development, we fought different ways. And now, like, I gotta say, like, we don't really fight.
Yeah. More regulated.
I honestly don't remember the last time we did. And it's not because things don't come up between us. It's just that we have created so much space for ourselves to be the way that we are. And more importantly, the other person to be how they are, and hold them, not like try to fix them or change them or make the thing that they say or do or didn't say like wrong. It's just, there's like a freedom there. And it doesn't mean that we can say whatever we want to each other. We create space to say whatever we want to each other. We'll tell each other, hey, I want to say something that's going to be a little bit like uncomfortable or edgy. Sure. And you know, this is what I'm looking for, whatever. It's like we got so good at our communication, both verbally and more than that, energetically, that it's just become so fluid and so easy. And that to me, it's like, put a price tag on that. Put a price tag on like
famous last words. Saying it's easy. Yeah, and I'd like to, like, by the end of the day, you're like, I fucking hate you.
But truly, it's like, you know, people think I want this in my life. I want to lose this amount of weight. I want to be this body percent. I want this amount of money in my bank account, blah, blah, blah. But I honestly believe at the end of the day, the thing that we are all seeking is a level of inner peace.
Yep.
More than anything else. Like if you really look like, why do I want that job? Why do I want that money? Because you have a knowing, like a belief system that says that if I have this amount of money coming in every month, or if I had the security of this job, like I'm going to feel good inside. Why do I want this body? I want this body so I don't have to keep worrying about my thighs or my abs, like, right? Because you want to feel good inside. The things that you worry about, money, health, whatever it might be, your mind is like, well, if we have this, then we're going to stop worrying about it. But that's not true. It's not true. Because there have been different times in your life where like you've had those things or close to those things and you still worried. So it's not about that. It's about, can we do something internally that actually allows us to find what I call like the center of the storm, the center of the tornado, where you can find the inner peace regardless of what is happening out there. If you can do that, there is no price that one can put on that.
Yeah. I was on the level one call before here, and it sounds depressing at first when I say it, but it's really not meant to be. It's like, it's like, what if this is as good as it got?
Yeah.
Again, like you really don't know what's coming today, tomorrow, like, and it's not about just being okay. Like, I think that's a really surface way of looking at it. I'm just okay with what I got, and
that's fine. Like that fine attitude. That's not
fine attitude. And the reality is, like, there's a lot of people who, if they could change places with you, would be unbelievably satisfied with the quality of life that you currently have, the amount of money that you have, the health that you're in, whatever it might be. Right. And so it's like, okay, so then the question is, well, where is this dissatisfaction coming from? Because we all talk, like, Thanksgiving's coming up. It's all about gratitude. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful I have that. And then, of course, in the next moment, it slips out because our mind does have this reach, this hope for the future that things are going to get better. And I think that's a good quality for human beings to have, but not at the expense of suffering in the present moment. And I think for many of us, if not all of us, we have so little training about being present with what's so, that we're so in the fantasy of what's coming to try to relieve the pain of the moment. And the reality is learning how to sit with the emotion, the sensation, the pain of the moment is the pathway to your liberation anyway. So you can either chase that thing and go into that loop, and then you'll get whatever that seems a little bit better, and then you'll go back into the pain of needing the next thing. That is a endless cycle of suffering. And the one thing that never seems to just rise up to anybody, me included, it's like a great deal of training to have this response versus, let me just be with what's here right now. We learned this early on. Again, I shared this at level 1. It's like, if you think you have a problem or you speak about like you have a problem or an issue, first of all, the weight of that and how that feels in the body is terrible. Like having a problem. And that makes you into a problem solver or an issue solver. And then you solve that problem, maybe. And then behind that problem is just another problem waiting for you to solve because you've now declared yourself as a problem solver, and your whole life becomes about problem solving. And you will never solve that problem. It is an unanswerable question is how to solve that problem. So back then they taught us, and I still think there's some validity in looking at things this way. Instead of solving a problem, it's generate a problem that you cannot solve. And then live your life on that. And for me and Elon, it's like transformation is like the problem that can't be solved, right? So if you want to think of it that way. But I don't really look at things that way anymore. I don't have an issue. I'm not trying to problem solve. I'm not trying to heal myself. There's not something broken with me. It's like none of those things. I am just a human being having a human experience. And I'm either going to learn to be at odds with that human experience or at peace with it. And everywhere where I'm at odds with it, it's because there is some trauma response happening there that will not allow me to feel safe or peaceful in that moment, or feel connected or resourced or loved or whatever it might be. And that is what needs my attention. And the more I give attention to that in the present moment, the more I release my attachments and expectations that the future will get better. And the truth is, most of our lives, if we really sat here, are probably great. Maybe you're not the richest person in the world financially, but maybe you're the richest, but maybe you have riches in the quality of your relationships. Like my okay, I don't want to say it because it might be embarrassing, but, or sound like gossip. So let me just think about how I want to say this. When my parents are worried about money, or I've been worried about money, I remind my parents that they have, first of all, migrated to a new country 2 times in their life, and now a third to Florida. So they've basically uprooted their life 3 times over a 60 some odd year period. That they started with $0 in the bank account, and like have built a wonderful life. And yeah, there are people that are richer out there, but I always tell them, like, how many valuable, extraordinary life experiences have these 2 people had? Yeah. They've eaten at some of the best restaurants in the world. They have been all over the world. They've raised 2, hopefully, nice, wonderful children.
Okay kids.
Okay kids who are doing, whatever they're doing in the world and trying to help a lot of people, who've raised good children, and like, so if your contention and definition of rich is just the number in your bank account at the end of the day versus experiences that you've accumulated that have brought joy or wisdom into your life or whatever it is, I mean, they're like the richest people on fucking planet Earth. I know plenty of people with like way more money than them that have not done any of those things, or have awful relationships with their children, or don't really travel, or hoard their money, or whatever it is, right? And again, no judgment on my part. You get to live your life however you want to live your life. But it's like, where are you paying attention to, and where are you paying attention from? And I like to remind people, yeah, healing work is important. Like, it really is. Like, awakening yourself, I think, might be the most important task or action any of us can take. And, healing is like metabolizing energy in the body. It's clearing. It's not adding, it's removing. It's not addition, it's subtraction. And in the same token, we need to understand that our mind works in a particular way. And our mind wants to move energy where there's a lot of connections in the brain, right? It's like where the energy can flow the easiest. And we all get to take responsibility that when we're doing healing work, that we also have to take responsibility for where we're placing our attention with our mind. And if it's not working for us to put attention over here, then we need to choose regularly to put our attention elsewhere. That might seem really challenging, but I don't mean to make it challenging. It could be as simple as, like, when you're upset, is just remembering that, like, maybe it's a sunny day outside, or you like really admire plant life, like a tree or a flower. And if you just look outside and you find a flower and you start appreciating the beauty of that flower and the color and your ability to experience that flower, that's what you got to take responsibility for, is where is the brain patterns moving and conditioning and creating certain configurations in your life. And you can't just sit by and just not do anything in regard to that. Like, the healing work is the action of no action, but our mind still works the way that it works. And these different organs have different ways that you get to work with them. And that's why we have like our level 1 work, so you can understand what your mind is doing and how to shift the way that the energy moves in your mind. Then we have level 2 and 3, which is like, how does the energetic configuration work? Because we need to acknowledge, whether we're talking about science or medicine or anything else, that like the fundamental of everything is energy. I find it fascinating and kind of like drives me a little bit batty too, that like the medical community refuses to acknowledge that we're energetic beings and just looks at us like this biochemistry machine to put stuff into. And it's like, it's energy, like so much stuff can be repaired and healed through energy. And I reminded RL once today, like, we've recently had a client, again, didn't come to us for this, who had severe adult scoliosis. Severe. We have the x-rays. And she's worked with therapists and doctors and all sorts of people to try to correct this. Nothing helped it. She did this work, and over this last year, her scoliosis self-corrected. Helen and I did not do that. Technically, she did not even do that. I mean, she did, but she didn't. Like, it's just energy, and healing work does that. Why? Because our mind and our energy is in a certain configuration. Our physical reality and nature around us mimics that configuration. For her, that configuration led to scoliosis. And then a year on, it's healed. The doctors can't make sense of it. Her specialists can't make sense of it. They don't understand how she did it. They're asking her all sorts of questions. She knows, right? So if we can see something like that in a physical representation in the human body, what's possible with your emotions? What's possible at the level of sensation? Anything, truly anything. And that's just the path she's been on. So Deepa was asking, because you had mentioned about our relationships. She said, how do you build safety to communicate, especially disagreement or strong conflicting views? So I'm going to let you respond to that if you want. Here, I'll broadcast it to the room so you can see.
Yeah. How do you build safety to communicate, especially disagreement or strong conflicting views?
So she asked that.
Yeah.
So you were talking about our relationship.
Yeah. So think about this, like even as I'm talking, just put some environment, like a scenario or a person or a circumstance in your mind's eye. And rather than think about this from an intellectual standpoint, see if you can actually feel where in your body there might be like a tightening or a constriction. What I realize is this: we're all addicted to being right. It's like a human addiction. And being wrong isn't just being wrong. Being wrong actually feels like an attack on our physical being. So there's something that happens in us that literally squeezes and tightens. It might trigger your I'm stupid, I'm inadequate, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, whatever. There's something that's being hit when someone's fighting for a position that you disagree with. And there's this intensity that comes in us trying to fight and convince the other person that like our opinion is better than their opinion. This is where I've come to with just all of this. By the way, Guy and I used to fight to the death intellectually with others about this. Like there were people in our lives that almost every conversation that we had would end up with yelling and screaming and you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. Like it was just round and round and round.
The truth is they were the idiots though.
And I think even like I've come to this in my own life. Like think of things that you believed to be 100% true, whether it was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Do you still believe those things with that conviction? And what you'll probably notice is that there's like things that even you fought for and you believed like it was the end all be all. And just a year, 5, 10 years later, like you don't even believe those things anymore. Well, back in that moment in time, you would fight for it like it is the absolute truth. So once I realized that, I was like, what am I fighting for? You know the best way to disarm any argumentative conversation? You just look at the person and go, you're 100% right. That's it. Conversation ends. Because here's the thing. In their point of view and in their worldview, they are 100% accurate because they are viewing the world in this circumstance and this whatever from that place. And there's nothing that you're going to convince your relative or friend or whoever about that's going to make them change their religious beliefs, their political beliefs, or the million other beliefs that they have. And like the truth is, what the fuck does it matter to you if they believe this or that? Yeah, like I know politically we there's people that like think less of someone because they like this person versus that person. Yeah, but you made that's your shit. You made all that up. And like I've never seen any conversation, whether it was about politics or religion or anything like that, where the other person walked away from the table and was like, you know what? You are 100% accurate. Like I relinquish all previous beliefs that I have and I will now take your beliefs. Never. Literally never happened. So it's like, what are you fighting for? That person is really locked in. They really, really like their worldview. And you know why? Because that worldview gives them a delusion of safety.
That's right.
And when you're trying to have them believe something else, you're literally putting their nervous system into unease.
Yeah, into a panic state.
You're like putting them into fight or flight. So what happens when someone's in fight or flight? Right? They dig their heels. They're like, fuck this. No. Right? They get very defensive. So you're not even having a conversation with that person. You're having a conversation with that person's protector at that point. And for what? Do you feel good in that conversation? Like, are you excited by this conversation? No. Are they excited about this conversation? No. I mean, some people do get off on like instigating and creating this environment. Like it's one of their things that they do. But those are now my favorite people. Every time they do that, what they expect is that everyone engages back with them. Everyone fights them. And they love that. They love the argument and to pull up their stats and their figures and all. I have this website and that. Look at this thing and blah, blah, blah. All you have to say is, you're 100% right. They don't even know what to do anymore. They're like, well, but what about the 75,000 other things I wanted to yell at you? I'm good. I just did this at like a dinner party not too long ago. I came late to this party. And so this gentleman had been around the block, like literally had done this with like 8 other people, right? Same thing. And I could feel like that energy where it's like he saw new blood and he's like, oh, I'm going to go in with this person, right? And so everyone's like watching and the whole thing. And I knew, because I know this kind of person. It's like he did this with everybody. And I told him, the guy left afterwards. They're like, what the fuck? What did you just do? Because they couldn't understand. They're like, he had done that jousting match with everybody. And they're like, I don't understand. I was like, I just gave him what he wanted. They're like, but what about this? And I was like, I don't give a shit what the fuck the guy believes. He doesn't believe that dinosaurs existed? Great. Absolutely. Dinosaurs did not exist. Like, why? Why even bother? So I think there's two things that are just to like give you the bullet points. One, you want to look inside and it's like, what is the thing that I'm fighting for? And why am I fighting? That's going to give you an indication of what is it inside of you that you want to look at, that you can create healing around and liberation from. And then this thing doesn't even run your life anymore. And then the other thing is just give them what they want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't cost you anything. And just because you say to someone like, you're right, doesn't mean that I am taking on your political view or your view of reality. I'm just letting you know that your view of reality is right. But my view of reality is also right. And the billion other views of reality are also right. I just don't need to fight for mine. I don't need to convince you that mine's the best one. Because you know what? I will change mine in a year or 2 or 5 from now. About everything. About diets and workouts and how to dress and, like how to have conversations. Like I'm constantly, because I'm constantly evolving and growing, like I'm constantly changing those things. So what the fuck am I fighting for? I'll tell you something else in a year from now.
Yeah. And Debo was saying, with views, what needs in relationships. Yeah, I mean, again, like there's nuance, right? She said, I'm not totally clear if I'm reading this properly. Yeah, like it's hard to see other people's views. Look, I mean, the more intimate the relationship, right, the more rocky, obviously, being stern in a point of view can be. I can just tell you what we see often is that just like we're all in certain configurations, like a relationship between you and a loved one is also in a configuration. Like Elon and I were in a configuration. And the way that configuration would go is about every 3 to 6 months, we'd get into a really contentious argument. And it would go like this. We would say, fuck you, and we'd hang up or end the Zoom meeting because you can't hang up anymore. There's no satisfaction. Right? Remember the old days? Dish, oh! Like you just need one of those on your desk just to like hammer the horn, like just to get the satisfaction. But we also knew, coming from a place of like doing a lot of personal development, that we'd come back together and like eventually clean it up when, cool heads prevail. And that hasn't happened now in like 5 or 6 years, I think. And that was something that regularly used to happen between us. It was not something we expected. It was just something that arose regularly. And I could tell you that it was absolutely an energetic configuration. So most relationships are going to have these structures. And some of these structures look like power over, power under. And so when you have like a perpetrator, you have a victim. When you have a victim, you have a perpetrator. It's just these roles that we kind of fall into when this is how it goes. And so at the end of the day, both the perpetrator and the victim want safety. Like when you're falling out of connection with somebody, when you're arguing, what you're really saying is, I just want to feel connected with you again in a safe way. I want to have safe bonding with you. And then we do a lot of weird stuff to try to get that. We make them wrong in positions, none of which works, obviously. And what has worked for us, what we see work time and time again, is people just coming together and recognizing that when you're in a relationship, it's like, again, if the safety falls out and if the connection is not there, then the thing to recapture is safety and connection. We don't do that through talking to each other. Yeah. Occasionally that works, but usually talking to each other is more like creating rules and agreements to abide by, which oftentimes then the rules are not followed and the agreements are not followed. And then we get back into the upset and there we go again. because we just can't hold every rule in our head all the time and remember everything perfectly. Like my wife and I constantly remember things differently. She's sure that I'm wrong. I'm not so sure every time. So, you know, and it would be great if there was a red flag, like in football,
replay button.
Yeah. Where you can like call a challenge, and then like we'd find out, you know, who's really got the shtick over here. Right. But anyway, the point is that like what has helped is sitting in practices that we teach here, like minis, and co-regulating those nervous systems together. So what we notice, like I can only speak for my relationship, but what I've seen many, many times with clients as well, is so my wife and I are not so concerned about having arguments. Not that, again, we look for them, but when they happen, they happen. But what we notice is, like for me especially, like I used to get my primary go-to when I'm feeling unsafe is anger. And so like not only would I get angry, but then I would get angry at myself for getting angry because I felt like I should know better because I'm an aware human being with wisdom and consciousness over myself, but that never helps. Because a knee-jerk response is a knee-jerk response. And so now I'm like, I'm angry, then I'm angry at myself for being angry. I'm judging myself for being angry. So now I'm not present. I'm like 3 in the hole. And then it's trying to navigate all that. And it would feel like this kind of sticky, tarish energy on my system for like 4 days. It would take me away from being present. It would make me kind of nasty when I was to be around. It was not present with my children. And so for me, the upset was always like the moment I get angry, it's like, I just lost 4 days of my life. That's what it would feel like. Today we get an argument and then like 15, 30 minutes later, we just rebound and we're like back to the stable, connected place. Now we're back to that stable and connected place, not because we have these amazing conversations that everyone needs to hear. Although sometimes we clear things, right? We take responsibility, whatever. But it's just that we've done so much co-regulation practices with our nervous systems that even after a titration like that, our nervous systems rebound and come back to stability. Yeah. And it's the same thing with me and Elon today too. We can like, it's even rare today we go through these big titrations, but I remember one maybe like a year and a half ago, I said something, Elon took it one way. And then I literally had to tell him like, that's not where I was thinking at all, you know, and he had to kind of like deal with the fact that he had this experience in his reality, because we're all like making stuff up from our reactivity and our trauma, right? Like about what we think we see, which is sometimes not what's actually happening. And then we're like dealing with that somebody else's like creation. And we're like, I'm like defending something that's not even me. Anyway, so my point is that like the co-regulation has changed the configuration and energy between the relationship. And that's how it is with my wife. That's how it is with Elon. And we see this even in abusive relationships where a partner is emotionally, mentally, or even physically abusive. Sometimes they will completely change or completely stop when one person begins to find stability and safety. And suddenly, I mean, we have testimonials of like woman after woman saying like, now my husband's not putting me in the corner anymore. He's talking to me kindly. Dare I say he's even showing some intimacy after like decades of this strife. How do you explain that? Yeah. Other than energetic configuration. And it's like, it like blows people's minds. And so we understand that there is absolutely the tool, like Elon said, of communication, learning how to use nonviolent communication, learning how to have integrity and responsibility with our word and honoring what we say. All that stuff is fundamentally important because we all use language every day in our relationships. And there's the undercurrent of what's happening, of this unconscious automatic reactivity that we're all dealing with, that usually people don't have space for in their own relationship with themselves. Nevertheless, in a relationship with another person, they're like, they can be reactive, but this other person can't be. It's like, well, you're a human being. It's going to happen. So you might as well learn not to try to make the reactivity go away, but how do we work with it to create more stability in the relationship such that when it shows up, it also has a place to go and it can metabolize out of the system and it doesn't hold on to and become another point of trauma in our system. And that's what this work is all about. And so like, whether you want that or not, doing this work is going to provide that for you. You know, Elon and I always say, it's like, you don't need to work on safety. You don't need to work on well-being. You don't need to work on safe bonding. You don't need to work on any of these things. They are literally symptoms, side effects of doing this work. All those things you're going to cultivate more of anyway. And then your reality usually begins to reflect that. More stability in here, more stability in your reality, more well-being in here, more well-being in your reality, and more connection in here, more connection in your relationships. It's just how it goes. The outer is the reflection of the inner. So that's hopefully why you're here. Hopefully why we're all here. I want to just remind you guys and invite you that if you are not in level 1 work, to consider stepping in there to start getting the kind of support that this community offers. It's 6 live group coaching calls every single month. You can go to soulsandseekers.com /level 1, the number 1. So it should be somewhere up there above your chat box. You can self-enroll in that program. We have both monthly and annual plans. It's given the value of the program and the value of the support, it's actually a pretty nominal fee. If you are somebody who's already in L1, or you want to consider working directly with Elon and myself in level 2 and 3, and even now beyond that, please get on Elon's calendar. And the way you can do that, again, is soulsandseekers.com /Elon. There is a $111 deposit to get on Elon's calendar, just so we want to make sure people are showing up for the calls and not booking time on his calendar and then not showing up. And you can put that deposit towards the credit of either one of those programs or anything you decide to do with us here.
By the way, so this is just an offer for people who I have not spoken to before. So just for new people in the community.
Got it. Yeah. If you've spoken to Elon before, it's not an opportunity to get a coaching call from Elon for $111 because our private clients pay significantly more than that to work with us directly. So please don't use that as a loophole to try to get his ear or his time. But it really is about just sitting in discovery with him and seeing what it might look like to join a program. There's no pressure on you to join those programs, and he's the best person to talk to about that. And we do curate those programs and make sure that people are ready for that type of work and have the level of commitment that we're looking for, because we don't work with just anybody. Should be told is like, you need to be showing a certain level of commitment in your life to your growth for Elon and I to really be able to make the type of impact that we know that we can make with you. We're not here to save anybody. We're not here to fix your life. We're not here to do any of those things. And so, level 1, you guys are free to self-select and put yourself in there. We can support pretty much anybody in most circumstances in those programs. But the levels where we give a lot of our time and energy and the 44 years of wisdom that Elon and I have garnered together, we're a little bit more careful about who we work with over there. So you kind of have to go through Elon as a gatekeeper anyway. Okay. All right, loves. Happy holidays. Thanks for investing your time here with us. We hope it was worth your time and energy. We love you very much. Have a nice time with your families and take care. We'll see you next time.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone that's celebrating.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.